A desert planet with twin suns.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Use my knowledge. Much to learn, you still have.
Welcome back to Twin Sun Talks, folks. I'm your host, Jonah Liu. Thank you so much for listening. Today is going to be a relatively short episode, I think, just looking at my outline, but we're going to be going over some of the most prominent Star Wars memes, so just a little lighthearted, fun episode that I hope that y'all enjoy. That being said, let's jump into ARC Trooper training.
Gentlemen, who wants to be an ARC Trooper? I do, sir!
So the purpose of this episode is essentially to kind of familiarize all of y'all with just some of the verbiage that's used when talking about these Star Wars memes and why the kind of the comedic significance of some of these, because I've come to realize that I mention a lot of these just kind of off the cuff within this podcast, and so I want to make sure that y'all aren't necessarily in the dark about all that stuff and why I find it funny. And when I say memes, quote unquote, it's basically anything that is made into a joke, or kind of it's like an inside joke almost within the Star Wars community. I'm not going to be reading out specific memes necessarily, because that would be that'd be pretty cringy. That being said, this episode has potential to be quite cringy, so just keep that in mind as we continue forward. But the first meme that I have, which I think that it's the most like it's the most heavily saturated within the Star Wars community, would be high ground memes. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Obi-Wan's iconic line is, "It's over, Anakin, I have the high ground." And the meme that comes along with this line is essentially saying that the high ground is the most powerful thing that you could possibly have in any sort of battle ever. And it's taken on many, many forms, but that's the basic gist, is that the high ground is the most powerful thing possible, and one must do anything in their power to obtain it in order to ascertain their victory. So if you ever see any high ground memes or hear anyone say anything about the high ground, chances are it has something to do with that kind of flavor of meme. The next one that I got for y'all is Padme dying of sadness. This is something that I find rather kind of lame within the Star Wars galaxy, or the Star Wars franchise. But Padme essentially loses the will to live and dies because she's so heartbroken over Anakin turning to the dark side. And so my favorite meme about this is like, Anakin has third-degree burns and missing limbs, but he's gonna live. But Padme's feeling sad, so she's gonna die. It's just stuff like that where it's essentially making fun of the fact that she didn't have any will to live for her children that were being born. She was just so sad that she died, which isn't particularly comedic in and of itself, but just in the context of a lot of these memes, that's where the comedic value lies. The next one I got is Darth Jar Jar, which I've talked about. I think that this is less of a meme and more of a legitimate conspiracy theory that I think actually has real implications within the Star Wars galaxy, but that's just me. But essentially, kind of the inference that Darth Jar Jar is the most powerful being in the galaxy at the time of the Clone Wars. Same thing with the Gonk memes, with Gonk being the most powerful being. Gonks are like the walking car batteries that just say the word Gonk. And so these are all additional memes where it's just kind of like words. It's late and I'm kind of having trouble saying words. Satirizing, being satirical towards beings that are obviously not powerful inherently, but shining them in a light of being the most powerful beings. I don't know if that made any sense, but sometimes my words come out and they don't quite follow a linear path, so apologies there. Probably the most aside from, I'd say that Obi-Wan Kenobi is the subject of some of the more prominent memes within the Star Wars galaxy, but the next one that I have is Hello There memes. And this is essentially playing off the scene where Obi-Wan drops down from the rafters to face Grievous and his droid army alone, and all he says is, "Hello there." And then Grievous turns around and goes, "General Kenobi." That's kind of a call and response for people who are within the Star Wars community. That's kind of an inside joke where if you go, "Hello there," and the appropriate response is General Kenobi. So, just a little tidbit there. If you're new to this, if someone says hello there and you know that they're a Star Wars fan, or even if they're not a Star Wars fan, always say General Kenobi without fail. And you won't be disappointed, or maybe you will. I don't know. The next one, also an Obi-Wan meme, is that Obi-Wan is Jesus. There's a pretty popular old meme where someone replaced a picture of Jesus within their home with a picture of Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones, and their mom didn't notice it ever. And so just essentially this coupled with the fact that like Obi-Wan is the beauty standard for men, or just for humans in general, that Obi-Wan is the peak human specimen possible. People really like Obi-Wan, and I can't blame them because he's a really, really cool character. But yeah, that's all I got there. The next is kind of in the same vein as the Padme dying thing, where it's kind of more edgy, dark humor. This isn't even that bad. It's Star Wars. But it's kind of making fun of Anakin killing children, which has taken form in calling his lightsaber the Youngling Slayer 9000 or 3000 or 1000 or whatever you want to call it. The Youngling, it's just like essentially poking fun at his dramatic turn to the dark side, as a lot of people see it if you're just a movies fan. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory in and of itself. The next one is that stormtroopers can't shoot. I feel like this is pretty well known, even if you're not a super entrenched member of the Star Wars community, but it's essentially that stormtroopers are unable to hit anybody who's like a main character. They are completely incompetent when it comes to that, and they've kind of made strides to address this. They're either not trained all that well, their helmets are hard to see out of, but we even see like Taika Waititi poked fun at this in his episode of The Mandalorian in season 1, where there are 2 scout troopers who are literally trying to shoot something, and neither of them can shoot. It's like a little can on the side of the road, and neither of them can shoot it, and it's really, really funny. Next one is that Anakin doesn't like sand. And I've seen a ton of stuff about this. Like, I've mentioned Star Wars Theory as being my favorite Star Wars content channel on YouTube. And he has a whole fan theory about what if Anakin liked sand. And obviously it's like a very much a facetious, satirical, and just kind of a go-happy, fun theory. It's not meant to be taken seriously, but it's just something that's so funny to me that it's such a pervasive like criticism and or point of comedic, like just absolute comedy gold within the prequels, is Anakin's little, "I don't like sand, it's coarse and rough and irritating and it gets everywhere," in Attack of the Clones. And just people really, I don't think I even need to explain the comedic value of that, just because it's so bad and so cringy that that it's just absolutely hilarious. Same thing with like, I killed every last one of them, but not just the men, but the women and the children too. Just kind of playing that off in different contexts. It's like not just the men, but the women and the children too. You'll see that everywhere, but that's when Anakin's talking about the Tusken Raiders. Grievous's collection. You see a lot of these things where it's like, your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection. You'll see like if a Jedi ever drops a lightsaber outside of a context where Grievous is an involved, you'll see like maybe Grievous peeking around the corner like, oh, like what have we here, and stuff like that, where it's just kind of playing on the fact that he's almost like obsessed with expanding his lightsaber collection. Whiny Skywalkers, from Anakin going, "It's not fair," to Luke going, "But I was going to Tasha Station to pick up some power converters." There's plenty of whiny dialogue that is very much noticeable and kind of obnoxious between or within the Star Wars or the Skywalker bloodline, and that's something that people like to poke fun at a lot as well. Obviously, one of the more iconic ones is Palpatine's line, "Do it," which can be, this can be incorporated into many different scenarios. Once again, I'm not trying to explain these memes because I feel like that's just a little bit of a cringe moment if I'm trying to explain memes, but I'm just trying to kind of establish that these are the main topics that you could see them take part in, and these are things that people are saying to be funny rather than to be taken seriously. Just like the simulations is an old Battlefront meme, where it's kind of like the main way that I've seen it is like if like when a girlfriend when a girl shoots you down after you've overthought all the different ways that she could reject you, and then the meme is just like the simulations, and it's a low res picture of a stormtrooper or clone trooper running through the battlefield, which I find rather funny. What about the droid attack on the Wookiees? People like to I don't know what the verb. Oh my gosh, my train of thought just like completely crashed. I don't know what the verb version of meme is, but people like to meme that line from Ki-Adi-Mundi in Revenge of the Sith. What about the droid attack on the Wookiees? Essentially saying like, oh, he's the only one that cared about the Wookiees. He cared about the Wookiees when no one else did. Visible confusion is a big one, with Obi-Wan on Kamino and Attack of the Clones. Essentially put in any context where someone says something very outlandish or stupid. And then honestly, just prequel memes in general. One of my favorite Star Wars memes is as follows, and I think that I'm going to put this as my graphic for when I post this on Instagram, and it's when you can no longer watch the prequels properly because every scene has become a meme. And then it's just Anakin's line, "What have I done?" After he betrays Mace Windu. So that's about all that I have. I went through that very kind of sporadically. I don't know how coherent it was because it is very early in the morning right now. Late at night, early in the morning. You take your pick. But all that said, I hope that y'all feel a little more enlightened about it now. And if I missed anything, feel free to let me know and I can add that in later. But that's about all I have for this. Let's hop into a quick segment of incoming transmissions.
Is Star Wars the one with the little wizard boy?
Alrighty. This question comes from my good friend Zach Brzezinski, and he was asking about the fairly recent episode that I made about Darth Sidious, aka Chancellor Palpatine's master plan to essentially dominate the galaxy through his authoritarian regime of the Empire. And he asked, why did the clones never attack Anakin? It wouldn't have been possible to install that in the code of the chips since Anakin was younger than the majority of the active clones. And it's obvious that they didn't discriminate between Jedi because they just uncontrollably and savagely attacked them all. So essentially, why didn't the clones turn on Anakin during Order 66, regardless of him being a Sith? And my best guess, because there's not, as far as my knowledge is concerned, there's not an actual specific answer to this. But I think, to my knowledge, it has something to do with the fact that Palpatine was able to give an order differentiating Vader from other Jedi. And probably since Vader was just serving with the 501st during the sacking of the Jedi Temple, it was probably pretty easy to just send it out to that battalion of clones. That being said, something interesting is that after Vader lost to Obi-Wan and got his iconic suit, he was using a fallen Jedi's lightsaber, and it was green. And the Coruscant Guard shock troopers under Commander Fox, who, for those of you who don't know, Commander Fox is the clone who was in charge of the Coruscant Guard, and he is the one who kills Fives in the Clone Wars season 6. Super, super sad. But he gets a lot of hate for that, but that's who he is. And these shock troopers attacked Vader thinking that he was a Jedi, not aware that he was, in fact, Lord Vader. And after, like, Vader takes out the troopers and they've kind of figured out who he is, Vader personally executes Commander Fox for not giving his men an accurate description of who he is. So, with all that said, I think that, to answer your question, Zach, I'm pretty sure that he being Palpatine probably sent out directives essentially saying, like, hey, this guy's on our side, this guy being Anakin, and not to attack him. And obviously there's a little lapse in communication after Vader got his iconic suit, which is kind of interesting to see. But appreciate your question, Zach. For those of you who have questions about the podcast or corrections or anything like that for me, feel free to email me at twinsontalks@gmail.com, DM me on Instagram at twinsontalks, or comment under our Instagram or under our YouTube videos. And you can subscribe there. It's Twin Sun Talks podcast on YouTube. Feel free to reach out in any of those ways if you ever have a question, comment, clarification, correction, anything like that regarding this podcast. And that's about all I have, but this wouldn't be a proper episode if I didn't leave y'all with a little bit more. Alrighty, so this more comes from a new source book that I've recently obtained. And this was actually something that I was going to obtain to help me with my rank of master questions. But upon reading it, I think that it's better served as a more source book because I honestly didn't know most of these things myself. So I don't think that that's fair to put in the rank of master necessarily until I've internalized this information a bit more. But the source book is called Obsessed with Star Wars. Test your knowledge of a galaxy far, far away. And it has 2,500 questions in it. And so this fact that I'm going to be reading to you is about Magna Guards. Now, Magna Guards are the bodyguards that General Grievous and Count Dooku utilized. They were very advanced battle droids that wielded electro staffs. I think that they were made of cortosis, which is repellent to lightsaber attacks, which made them very, very formidable opponents to Jedi. And what's more, they were able to operate without their heads, which is, and sometimes without limbs as well. So that made them very hard to dispatch. And essentially, the fact today is that the company that manufactured Magna Guards was called Holowan Mechanicals. So, just a little bit of knowledge for you there. I did not know that until I just read it just now. So, yeah, do with that information what you will. I'm going to try to get a little more specific with my mores moving forward because that's what this segment's meant to be. Is it's meant to be less specific or more specific knowledge that won't necessarily fit into any episodes that I do, but it's just something interesting that I find and a little tidbit to give you to gnaw on for future reference. But that being said, that's all that I have for today's episode. I really hope that y'all enjoy it. If you missed it, I had my first edition of The Ability to Speak Does Not Make You Intelligent this past Friday. And I had my good friends John Grimes and Hamza Al-Assadi on. We talked about Star Wars Visions and many other things. They did the Rank of Master, all that good stuff. So it's a long episode. It's over an hour, but I think that y'all would really enjoy it. There's a visual component up on YouTube with it, and yeah, it'd mean a lot if y'all went and checked that out. But that's all that I have for today's episode. You've taken your first steps into a larger world. May the Force be with you, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Bye, friends.